Welcome to the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast, brought to you by the Arkansas Cattlemen's Association. Here, we dive into the heart of Arkansas's cattle industry, where legislation, education, advocacy, and development come together to support the hardworking cattle producers of the natural state. Whether you're in the pasture or on the road, this is your connection to the people, policies, and programs shaping the future of our industry. Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, we are. What a week. It has been a gorgeous week. We've been on the road at area conferences. I've been at the Capitol. We've been doing all kinds of things, but it's so nice to be back here in our little makeshift studio, bringing you episode number 8.
It's crazy. Yeah, I did get sunburned cooking steaks on Tuesday. I was like, I'm kind of feeling little, and then I looked and I was like, oh, I'm pink. This is not great.
A little warm. It's nice, though. I much prefer it to pouring down rain or freezing, even though the grill does get very warm. Helps us out.
Yep.
We have a lot of very serious things to talk about today, so we're going to start with something not at all serious.
Oh, no.
I asked the robot, a.k.a. ChatGPT, to write me a joke about cows in spring, because I feel like I needed... Like, we need this in our life right now.
We need some humor.
It says, why do cows love springtime?
Well,
because they get mood swings from all the fresh grass and sunshine.
Nice.
Oh, so I feel like
Nice.
I relate to that. I get mood swings from the fresh grass and sunshine. So, yeah, we have a lot of big things to talk about, but I just feel like we just need to start with that.
Yes, for sure.
Like, I'm not going to say we're going to have a joke every time, but... need a little levity to the situation and to the podcast. So.
I feel like today's going to be serious because looking at your notes on here, I'm like, oh, Lord.
Yeah, my stack
Lots
of papers.
Lots of stuff happened on the Hill this week.
Yeah, if you're watching online, you can literally see my stack of papers. It's fairly thick. So lots of things to update.
Lots of things.
And so with that, we can just jump right in and get going because I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Not take too much of it.
And also, so welcome to Hats on the Hill. New hat of the day. I just walked into Randy's office and I took his hat of the day. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I need a new hat. And he was like, what about the Stetson you used last week? I'm like, no. I'm showing off your collection. Be happy. This is his hat of the day. So
yeah, gotta have a different hat.
Yeah.
Little unknown fact, while we were at the Capitol this week, somebody took off their hat to provide testimony and handed it over to the side and handed it to a gentleman, and he put it down, wrong side.
Side down.
And one of our members reached over and just flipped the hat in the middle of the thing. He wasn't on camera. It wasn't anything like that. But the gentleman later walked up to me. He's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" I'm like, yeah, it's a bad thing. It's a very bad thing. You also don't put a hat on a bed. I was like, there's a whole list I can provide it for you. So. Lots of hat education happening at the Capitol with Hats on the Hill. So it was great.
Yeah.
Good times.
So, let's get started. What happened this week?
Yeah, so it was a very busy week. We're going to talk about Senate Bill 290, which was the moratorium bill, here in a second. But we did have members go to the Capitol this week, and we had lots of hats on the Hill there at the Capitol. We have been there. I've been there every single week, or every single day this week, which is not always normal. Sometimes we're able to just watch online, or the Ag Committee doesn't have a meeting or anything like that. That was not the case this week, and so we were able to be there and have a presence all across the board. We had a lot of bills introduced this week. Not necessarily, again, not a lot of movement, but a lot of bills introduced. They are anticipating they will adjourn session I had to think about the month. I almost said March. I was like, no, that's this month. In April, about the middle of April is the goal, the anticipation there. And so we've got about a month left of session, and it's about to get very busy. Hopefully we'll see a good bit of movement on all these bills that have been introduced thus far. So great time, busy time there at the Capitol. We're going to talk about it a lot, so I'm not going to go super in depth.
Yeah. So, can you go ahead and provide us an update on SB 290?
Yeah, so Senate Bill 290, as a reminder for y'all, it was the moratorium on moratoriums, as I lovingly call it, but it was essentially saying that the power for a moratorium, a permitting moratorium, needs to be in the legislature in some form as opposed to a state agency. And so for us, again, for the cattlemen's, this is a private property rights issue. This is a right to farm issue, but really it's a legislative process issue. And so we want to look at having that power in the hands of people that are elected and held responsible by Arkansans rather than an unelected or position within the Department of Agriculture. And so, or state agencies entirely. And so we appeared. We had our second vice president, Don Hubble from Independence County, came and provided testimony. And then our Area 7 vice president, Travis Payne from Conway County, both came, provided testimony, and did an amazing job sharing our concerns from the cattleman's perspective, but also addressing what we are doing as cattle producers to protect our watersheds, because that's obviously the other side of this issue is it's permitting moratoriums in a watershed. And so Don especially shared, he farms right there next to the White River, and he shared some of his conservation practices on what he does to protect the White River and to prevent erosion and to prevent runoff and things like that. Did an amazing job. It's actually been quoted in a few articles about what he's been working on. And so it's good to see our members and our leaders there on behalf of our members. And so we provided testimony. Arkansas Farm Bureau also provided testimony for the bill, and then there were quite a few people from the Heritage Society, Buffalo River Society, that were providing testimony against the bill, in opposition to the bill. Everybody had a minute and a half to provide testimony. There was 40 minutes of testimony, and so you can imagine how many people that were there. It was quite a bit of conversation, and quite a controversial conversation, which we knew going into it was going to be. There were some concerns brought up with the bill about the Administrative Procedures Act of giving the power to the House and Senate Ag committees as opposed to the Arkansas Legislative Council or whoever it might be. And so after 40 minutes of testimony and questions from the Senate Ag Committee, Senator Johnson, who was sponsoring the bill and running the bill, made the decision to pull the bill down, address some of these concerns that were brought up, and we'll be potentially working on an amendment for that bill, and we may see that come forward here shortly. So he's still working with that. We do know, obviously, that the governor was in opposition to this bill, and so there's going to be conversations there, as well as can we continue to work to try to find a middle ground to protect our environment but also protect our private property rights, all within the grounds of the Administrative Procedures Act and the Arkansas Constitution. And so that bill we're anticipating will be coming back in some form or fashion, whether that's an amendment to the current bill, whether that's a resurrection of the deferred Senate Bill 84, or whether that's an entirely new bill. We don't really know yet. There's still a lot of conversations happening there. But our members and our leaders were there to make sure our voices were heard. And so we will see and continue to keep y'all updated on that. It really, maybe not surprisingly, but it really has become the bill of the session. Everyone is there talking about this bill in some form or fashion. And so it'll be interesting to kind of see where this ends up and where this goes. But for now, we're still in the very beginnings of the conversations of the next steps for that bill. And so that'll also answer the next question, which are what are the next steps? And we don't know exactly. Welcome to the legislature, where so many conversations are happening at all different times. And so while we do hope to see the bill again in some form, we're not no one's 100% positive what that form is going to look like or what those next steps are going to be. But we're going to continue to be having those conversations and to be there to make sure that producers' private property rights are protected, and that we give the power of a permitting moratorium to the legislature, whatever committee that may look like, but whatever form that may look like, but making sure that they have the power. And so we'll see, keep y'all updated on that one. I'm sure it will be a hot topic in the coming weeks as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned it, when we started, but what other bills are being introduced? I know we've got a whole list to talk about here.
Yeah, I'm going to have to drink my water because we do have quite a list. So I'm going to ask y'all to stick with us for it. Like I said, it's been a busy week here at the Capitol. A lot of bills getting introduced. And so we'll kind of run through them a little bit. Obviously, there were hundreds of more bills than this introduced over the last couple of weeks, but I'm not going to go through every single one. I'm going to go through the ones that are pertaining to agriculture, specifically pertaining to the livestock sector. And so one of the first ones I want to talk about, because it's actually one of the only ones that has a little bit of movement, is HB 1682, which is the Good Neighbor Act. So you're going to see me scrolling through my papers here. And so it is an act to create the Good Neighbor Act to clarify food donation liability and immunity. And so what this does is it protects the people that are donating foods to a food bank, to a nonprofit, whatever it might be, from the liability if something is wrong with that food. It also protects the food banks if they give out food that has an issue with it, as long as neither party are doing it on purpose. So as long as nobody knows that there is an issue, and as long as they tell the people, hey, I'm going to disclose this. I'm going to disclose whatever is occurring. And so a little known fact is that we do actually work with the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance on the beef project. And so we have the ability, our producers, cattle farmers have the ability to donate beef to the Arkansas food banks, whether that be through that project or separately. The one caveat, even with the Good Neighbor bill, is that it does need to be inspected. It'll have to be inspected by either a state or federally inspected facility. And so that is just to protect the people. So this bill, the Good Neighbor Act, does not change that, still requires that inspection level there, but just kind of decreases the liability for the donator, the person doing the donation, and for the people donating out to the public. And so really good, as we say often, the Capitol's a really good bill. It's a good bill. But it really is, it opens up, I think there's a lot of people that were kind of concerned, kind of nervous about donating food to the food bank, because what if there is something wrong? What if there's not, am I going to be held responsible for this? I want to help my neighbor, but I don't want to be held responsible for it. That bill passed out of committee and passed the House floor, so it will be going to the Senate here next week. And so we're hoping to see some positive movement on that one. The next bill that had a little bit of movement this week was HB 1594, which, if you remember, which I don't expect you to, but if you do, it is the tax-exempt ID card by Representative Vaught. So that bill passed out of House Revenue and Tax this week and then went to the House floor. Representative Vaught actually made a motion herself to re-refer that to the House Revenue and Tax Committee to improve upon the bill. And so as we discussed last week, this bill would just create a tax ID card for farmers, doesn't add any new exemptions, doesn't add anything. It just makes it a little bit easier of a process for a farmer or a rancher to get the exemptions that they are already entitled to. The bill as originally written was going to have a fiscal impact of $300,000 to $400,000, according to the Department of Finance and Administration. And while that passed out of House Revenue and Tax Committee, the odds of it passing out of the Senate Revenue and Tax Committee were a good bit lower. And so Representative Vaught is going back to the table, literally and figuratively, to see what she can do to decrease the fiscal impact there, or to make it a fiscal impact neutral bill. So we're still working on that with her, still hoping to see some positive movement there. We could see the committee and on the House side and the House floor pass, really still having the excitement for it and the ability to say, hey, let's simplify this process for our farmers. Because again, the biggest struggle, and even what they had in the committee meeting was the conversation of like, well, you only have to fill out a piece of paper to get your tax exempt. Like, yep, you have to fill it out every time. And the example kept getting used of machinery, of equipment. You're like, okay, yeah, that true statement. But how often do we buy new pieces of machinery? How often do we buy new equipment? Not that often, I'll tell you. But how often do we go to the store and buy feed, seed, or fertilizer? All of which are exempt. And you have to fill out this paper every single time. And so, again, it just stressing, the committee stressing the need, and Representative Vaught stressing the need and the ability to make this a simplified process. So we'll keep you all updated as that bill comes out of, or goes back into the House Revenue and Tax Committee to see any changes. As of right now, there are no amendments officially submitted, and so we'll see kind of how that bill changes as we go forward. And then going back to so those are the two bills that have had actual movement and some support going through. And then to go on, the next bill that we'll talk about is HB 1740. It is right here in my stack of notes. And so it is brought forth by Representative Kendra Moore. You have to specify there's two Moores in the House. So Representative Kendra Moore has brought HB 1740, which is a law to exempt certain agricultural information from the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. And so while the Cattlemen's is normally all for transparency, for government transparency, we are in support of HB 1740 and actually helped write this bill, because what it is exempting from FOIA. So if you don't know, Freedom of Information Act gives the public the ability to request information from any state agency, but in this case from the Department of Agriculture. And so what this does is exempt certificates of veterinary inspection and personal information obtained from or associated with any animal electronic identification tag. And so anything tied to your EID tags or anything tied to that certificate of veterinary inspection will be exempt, under this bill, would be exempt from FOIA. So nobody could request the information to see your vaccine protocol, to see your veterinary health inspection, to see any of these pieces, or how many cows you have. Any of that would all be exempted from FOIA through this bill. And so Representative Moore has quite a few co-sponsors there in the House, because a lot of times a FOIA exemption bill especially is a little bit more difficult to pass, because people are usually typically for transparency. We want to be able to FOIA things. We want to be able to hold the government accountable. But what we are doing here is just protecting private information for producers. And so that has not been, it's been filed, has not gone through committee yet. It will go through committee next week. It will, I would assume it will not actually go through the Senate Ag Committee. And so it will go through state agencies. And so we will see, we'll be keeping an eye on this bill as it goes forward. Really grateful for Representative Moore for her work on this bill to protect producers' private information there. And so that's HB 1740. And then the last ones I'll go through a little bit quicker. So HB 1741, HB 1742, HB 1743, and HB 1744 are all from Representative Woolridge, and they are all Department of Ag cleanup bills. And so 41 deals with liming, 42 with seed certification, 43 with feed law, and 44 with fertilizer. And so all these bills is exactly what it sounds like when we say a cleanup bill. There's a lot of things left over from the transformation, when we got rid of the state plant board, when we combined boards and commissions, like all of these different things. And so what these bills do, I'm going to pull up 1743, which is the feed law. And so all it does is specifies, like, this chapter shall be administered by, instead of the state plant board, it will now say the Department of Agriculture. So it just crosses off any reference to the state plant board, as that board does not does not have the authority there. And then it also strikes through anywhere that says a fee and just changes it to the sum due, the amount due for the money. And so all of that is all 4 of those bills that I talked about from Representative Woolridge are all department cleanup bills that just changed that language there from state plant board or whatever board that is no longer holding that authority to the Department of Agriculture. So that's those are all 4 of those bills. And so if you're curious about them, you can read those there, but very, very little changes. And so then the last 2 are going to be both Senate bills. One is Senate Bill 400. One is Senate Bill 453. So Senate Bill 400 is from Senator Irving. It is a fair funding bill. And so it looks to be trying to find the correct piece of paper here. And so it looks to just further define what is required of fairs and livestock shows to be able to receive funding from the department or from the legislature through the Department of Agriculture. And so requiring audits, requiring operating plans, requiring certificates of good standing on some of those items there. And so quite a bit of conversation there. There's still some amendments to be had. Senator Irvin was not ready to present this bill in Senate Ag on Thursday, although it was on the agenda. She specified that there were amendments coming. So for now, I'm not going to go too deep into that one until we see what it will look like amended. And then finally, the Senate Bill 453 addressing Department of Ag employees was just filed on March 13th, which is Thursday of this week. And so it was filed by Senator Brian King, addressing some of it being cleanup of department language, but then also addressing and removal of some department employees. And so since it was just filed late in the week, I have not had a chance to sit down with Senator King and talk through this, but we will keep y'all updated on any conversations that happen on this bill and how it might impact the Cattlemen's Association, but really impact the Arkansas ag in general. So we'll keep y'all updated on those once we're able to kind of have some conversations with the senator about that. And so all of those, I mean, it seems like a ton of updates, but not a lot of movement. Lots of things being filed, not a lot being heard. And so until we kind of hear some and know that there's amendments on some of these bills, we'll keep y'all updated. But we'll keep chugging along and looking at these and seeing the impact that may be had to producers all across the board. And so with that, that felt like a lot. There's been a lot of introductions here.
Yeah.
And you're going to see that continue as we try to wrap up the session within a month or 5 weeks, technically. And so from the time of this posting, it'll be 5 weeks, in theory, left in session if they do, in fact, adjourn April 18th as anticipated. And so you will see quite a few more bills being introduced as they're trying to make sure they get things rolling and moving. And so we're hoping to see, as they get introduced, we'll actually see some bills moving through the process.
And we're recording this on March 13th, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're trying this again where we're going to record the day before it posts.
Yeah.
We're going to try it out. So that is my my state update for you of what's been going on.
Yeah. I'll let you take a drink.
Thank you.
So, what are the federal updates we're looking at?
Yeah, so a little bit less there. Again, we talked last week about the reconciliation process and the budget and the requirements for the budget before we get a farm bill, before we get anything like that. And so that is really coming down to the wire because, as Nora Lee mentioned, we are recording this on Thursday, March 13th. And the deadline for the government to pass a continuing resolution without shutting down is Friday, March 14th. And so as of right now, we have not seen a continuing resolution come through completely, and so we will continue to keep y'all updated on that. And so there is a pending government shutdown, and so what we're looking at it from a cattleman standpoint is a continuing resolution will keep the government open, obviously, and maintain existing cattle industry appropriations priorities. And so continue funding some of the priorities that we have at the federal level. And so we will see It'll be happening later on the day of this recording, and so by Friday, by the time this posts, we should know. But I unfortunately cannot predict the future, so I cannot tell you whether we will have a government shutdown yet or not. And so that is again the struggle of timing with these updates. So while this is a lot more timely than the magazine, can still have some delays that we'll focus on. So that's one of the biggest things that the government at the federal level is looking at right now. And then some other issues that we're looking at is working with Representative Bruce Westerman, who is the chair of the Natural Resources Committee. And so he's looking at the Endangered Species Act and addressing delisting some species that have been an issue for cattle producers. Unfortunately, for Arkansas, black-headed buzzards are not on the Endangered Species Act, they're on the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and so they will not be addressed in this. We had a couple of people ask us, like, oh, hey, like, this will solve our problem. Fortunately, no, but it does show, if this bill does go through, it would show hopefully a little bit more of an appetite to address the black-headed buzzards issue that we know cattle producers are facing across the Southeast. And so this one would be looking more at the grizzly bear and the wolf side of Endangered Species Act. And so that is that's been introduced, and so we will see and keep you all updated on Congressman Westerman's moves and hopefully pending success on that. So that is our federal update. Again, much shorter because we're looking at the budget is kind of, and now the continuing resolution, the CR is holding up the conversations of any bigger legislation that could be happening. So with that's our hats on the hill. Yeah, it's I enjoy doing those. I know they can be a big portion of this, but again, I think it's the biggest piece of what you're getting at the Cattlemen's Association for your membership is the ability to have somebody at the Capitol doing this exactly, of looking at the legislation and saying, how could this negatively or positively impact the cattle organization, the cattle producers in this state, and speak on behalf of the cattlemen as an organization. And so we are continuing to engage there. And so this session has been an interesting one, as we've seen a lot of bills get introduced, but just not a lot of movement. So, yeah. And you'll continue to get these updates at your area conferences, which is what we're going to talk about next. So we've been giving updates on these pieces as well at area conferences, definitely not quite as in-depth as here, but still giving y'all a timely update for those. And so this week we had 2 area conferences. We went to Area 1 in Huntsville and Area 2 in Clarksville. Had great events at both.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like. So really enjoyed it. We had a record number of vendors. Area 1, the highest number of vendors we've ever had, and actually almost close to a record number of attendees as well. Fed quite a few people at both places, and just, I mean, steaks were delicious. We had pink steaks. It was great. Mm-hmm. It was a wonderful time. It's always perfect when you're cooking that many steaks. It's very difficult to get them just right, and I think the cooks did an outstanding job at both conferences. Everybody got a steak, which is key. And so everybody got a steak, and then everybody got to hopefully get a steak to their liking.
Yeah. And it's pretty interesting, like Area 1, we had mashed potatoes and baked beans, and then it wasn't last night, it was Tuesday night.
It feels like last night.
I know. We had scalloped potatoes and then green beans. So it's always different at the different area conferences, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, so behind the scenes, there's a little bit, I mean, those are planned by while we show up with the vendors and the steaks and the cooker and the seasonings and all of that. But the area vice presidents really truly are the host counties are really truly the lifeblood behind those. They plan all the sides, they plan the panel, they plan the venue, the tables, the chairs, every single other piece of that. And so they've done an outstanding job. We've been able to show up as the state office, usually rolling in on 2 wheels right now, because we're coming in from the Capitol or leaving to go to the Capitol the next day. And so they've done an outstanding job. So big shout out to our host counties and our area vice presidents for getting those planned so amazingly. I think the panels this week were were a unique perspective, for sure. I know in Area 2, we had a fairly large cow-calf producer, and then we had a stalker backgrounder, kind of provide two very different perspectives there. And so I think that's one of my favorite things about the panel, is that you're not getting the same thing every place, but you're also not just seeing one sector of the industry. We're working really hard to make sure that we have some multi-faceted representation there for our producers. So, what is your... So last week we asked what your favorite part was. So again, we're going to ask out, like, what's your favorite part so far again for area conferences?
Just talking to people. I'm going to say that every time, but just seeing some old friends again, and it's just really nice to catch up with them because I haven't talked to them in years, and then meeting new people, getting to talk to them, and just getting out and seeing everything. Yeah, and being able to, for me, is really just being able to connect with our members. We see members at area conferences that if we did not have those events, we would not see anywhere else. And so we see a lot of members that obviously they come to their county meetings, they're involved at the county level, but we maybe don't ever see them at the state level. And so we get to interact with them in probably a way that we never would if we didn't have these events. I also just really enjoy hearing from the members and the vendors about how much they enjoy these events. Obviously, you get a free steak dinner. That's hard to beat anytime, but also you're getting to get some of that educational, some of that networking opportunities that you wouldn't have anywhere else. I mean, how there are many other places you're gonna have a couple 100, 300 people come all and sit down and all be within the same industry, have different opinions, have different thoughts, and be able to share them and say, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what works, here's what doesn't. And so it's a really unique opportunity, unique events. It's some of my favorite events. We've got 3 coming up next week. We'll have and these are actually flip-flopped from previous years. We have Area 9 in Paragould on Monday, Area 8 in Batesville on Tuesday, and then Area 5 in Monticello on Thursday. And so we've ordered the steaks. We are coming. We'll be ready to cook everybody a steak dinner. If you're coming, we're excited to see you, and we're excited to visit with you. We're really grateful for our vendors and our sponsors for making these events possible and free for our members. And so really grateful for them. Without the vendors and the sponsors, we wouldn't be able to do these, for sure. And it's fun hanging out with the vendors before everybody shows up, because Tuesday, which me and Randy got there early because you were skirting in on 2 wheels from the Capitol, but we were kind of not really chilling out, but doing stuff. And I drove my parents' truck, and my dad's a welder, and his helper a couple months ago left his speaker in my dad's truck, so stole it and started jamming out with everybody, and everybody was like, oh yeah, I like your music, because I like 70s and 80s country, and they were like, it was a whole vibe. It was pretty funny. Yeah, they're like, how old are you again? Yeah. Like, what is this? It was a vibe. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, so I'm grateful to be able to just show up when I do, because it was definitely a busy day on Tuesday. Monday we were in Huntsville, and then myself, Dawn Hubble, our second vice president, and our president, Scott Sullivan, all left Monday night from Huntsville and drove to Central Arkansas in some capacity, whether that be Clarksville, Little Rock, or Conway. All 3 of us went to slightly different places, but all were close by, getting ready to do and provide testimony and to be at the Capitol on Tuesday for the Senate Bill 290 on the moratoriums. And so we all were there, did that, were available at the Capitol, and then came into the area conference later, and so showed up, and Norley and Randy and the vendors were already set up and ready to go, and so we were able to jump right in, season steaks, and go from there. And so it's exciting times. It is a very busy time, but it's the dichotomy for me of like, oh, hey, let me change out of my suit and put on something that I can get dirty and bloody and seasoning all over and get ready to season these steaks is special. It's what's cool about this job, is that you can do both. You can be at the Capitol providing testimony, and on for Dawn's example, providing testimony to senators, and then turn around and be cooking a couple 100 steaks the couple hours later. Mm-hmm. So you don't get that a lot of places. No. So. No. A little unique opportunity there for our members and leaders. So yeah. And I also want to give a shout out to some of our members who helped us which we have a membership booth, and you can pay your memberships at the conferences. And then we have a drawing for a Go Bob hay trailer, and they help us sell those tickets. So if you're interested, that's a Go Bob inline hay trailer. It's 32 foot. If you're interested, it'll be parked out front of each area conference. Drawing will be Tuesday, March 25th at Area 7. You do not have to be present to win, but
We'll figure out how to get it to you.
yeah.
We've got enough trucks. Somebody will get it.
Somebody got it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure that part out. Yeah, those tickets are available, and you can call the office if you're interested in putting your name on a ticket. If your area conference has already happened, you can definitely do that. Or if you're coming to area conference, we have the ability to take card, cash, or check for those tickets. And so we're really grateful. Like Norlie said, like we're usually going around taking pictures, visiting with vendors, making sure that everything's ready and set up and going. And so we have had outstanding membership recruiters and members that have been willing to sit at those booths and help us sell those tickets. And speaking of that, we also want to be able to shout out some of our membership recruiters. And so we can do that. That was perfectly, I didn't even plan that. That was
Yeah, me either.
What a good segue there.
We're so good.
So we don't want to highlight those membership recruiters because I sat down the other day. I was like, I don't think we ever did that on the podcast. And if we did, sorry, they're going to get shouted out again. So our February membership incentive winners.
Yeah, so our February monthly incentive was we had 40 bags of Purina Wind and Rain mineral from Farmers Association. So thank you to Farmers Association for sponsoring that.
Yes.
And so drum roll for
But not really, because it would be very annoying on these mics.
Oh yeah, for sure. But congratulations to Catherine Ann Teeter for winning first place. She gets 20 bags of the mineral. She's from Pope County. Second place is Maybelle Castera of White County, and third place is Ricky Goff from Randolph Lawrence County Association. So congratulations to them. Catherine gets 20 bags, and then Maybelle and Ricky get 10 bags. So we split that up between all of them. So we're extremely thankful for all three of them and everybody else who recruits. And if you really want some, if you want to know where you're standing at, just give us a call. I can tell you how many you've recruited during the month and signed by reports and everything. So.
Yep. And then now, because, we're halfway through March, now's the perfect time to highlight our March incentive.
Right.
Things just got a little bit away from us. We kind of forgot to do that at the beginning of the month. And so it's not too late to recruit, though.
Nope.
And so we do want to highlight our March incentive sponsor and make sure they get a shout out, and we let people know kind of what they could win this month.
Yeah, after we got done recording last week, we're like, oh, no, we didn't do that. But,
Happens.
So our March monthly incentive is from McElhaney Equipment and Fort M Equipment, and they're providing 8 rolls of Vermeer hay net wrap. First place gets 4 rolls, and then second and third place gets 2 rolls each. So,
yeah,
extremely thankful for them. They've done a lot for us in the past.
So really excited to be able to offer that net wrap. It seems crazy to think that by the time that these names are drawn, which will be partway into April, a week or two into April, once postmarks finish for March, because it does have to be postmarked by March 31st. I believe there's 31 days in March.
Yep.
So it needs to be postmarked by March 31st. And so it'll be a week or two into April before we actually finalize the winners once all the postmarks are received. And so you have a good bit of time. Still, you got 2 weeks, couple weeks to go out and recruit. 3 weeks to go out and recruit members. I encourage you to do that. But it's crazy to think by the time we announce that, it will almost be hay season.
Yeah, when I got home Tuesday night, I brought the cooker home, and I was like, that smells like burnt grass. I looked out, and my grandparents and parents already burned the fields already. So I'm like, oh, it's that time. It's that time of year.
It's almost hay season. So perfect timing for McElhaney and 4M Equipment to provide that net wrap. So really grateful for them. They should be able to, the winners should be able to get it to them by the time for, in time for hay season. Yep. So that's very exciting. So we're grateful for it. We have a monthly incentive sponsor every month of Membership Drive, January through June. And so 6 months worth of membership incentives. If you're ever curious, you can look in the magazine and see what those are every month and see kind of where you want to go and find out which one you want to receive. You're eligible to receive all of them as long as you put your name on that sign by report.
Yep. That's all you got to do. Put your name in, and then I'll put you in the system, and you're good to go. So.
Yeah, so really, again, we love being able to highlight our sponsors, highlight our members that are recruiting, and so, but it also means a lot to us to be able to have a tangible item to provide them to say thank you for recruiting, and that would not be possible without our sponsors providing those for us. And so thank you to Farmers Association for your February sponsorship, and to the 4M and McLehaney Equipment family for their March sponsorship. Really grateful for it. And so with that, we talked about area conferences, we talked about the hay trailer. And so tickets are still available for that. They will be available all up until the end of the Area 7 conference, the Conway Conference, which will be March 25th. And so you can call us at any point in time and get your name on some of those tickets. But we'll also be, like I said, we'll have 3 area conferences next week. It is RSVP deadlines have passed for those, but we will have those final 2 conferences in the end of March. We'll have Area 6 on the 24th and Area 7 on the 25th. Those deadlines close next Monday, so deadlines are 1 week ahead of the conferences. And so if you have not RSVP'd yet, there was an issue with the Area 7 RSVP online. We have since fixed that issue. You're now able to RSVP online for the Area 7 conference. So if you haven't RSVP'd, go online, RSVP. We just want to make sure we have enough stakes for everybody. So we encourage you to do that. But other than that, are there any other announcements, requests?
I thought about it when we were talking about recruiting. Like, y'all can come to area conference and recruit members as well. Mm-hmm. And if you need a membership book, I got them. Just let me know.
Yeah, we'll have membership drive. We'll have one-pagers. We'll also have the receipt books for people. So if you want to help us out and recruit members at area conferences, or you just want to talk to people while you're there, you're more than welcome. Yeah. We're not going to turn people away. Have at it. And so take that opportunity. Seize the day, for sure. So, as usual, you want to remind them where to find us, where to follow us, all the things.
Follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, listen to our podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, all the things. And then subscribe to our newsletter.
Hit the follow button on social and hit the subscribe button on the podcast. We really appreciate it. Again, we love all the feedback. We've been getting a lot of feedback from people that listen to the podcast, so really grateful for it. But the more support, the more follows, the better that other people can see and find this and hear it. And so we appreciate it. We appreciate it, and we appreciate y'all tuning in for episode 8 and for what has been quite a week of legislative updates for you.
Yep.
So we're excited to do it. We're excited to wrap out and to see y'all 3 different area conferences next week.
Yep. So. Hopefully to see y'all all there. So
thank y'all. We hope you have a great day.
Yeah. See y'all later. This is the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast, your trusted source for all things cattle in the natural state.